It's so early. I'm your host, Will Schoellkopf, author of the Bitcoin Dog, following the Descent to the Bitcoin C++ source code, and contributor to Bitcoin Magazine. If you want to save 10% off on your tickets to the Bitcoin 2023 conference, you can use my promo code BitcoinDog, all caps, one word. Um, and if you enjoy the show, please like, comment, and subscribe. My guest today is Casey. Casey, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me, Will. I'm super excited to be on. And yeah, thanks for showing the conference. It's always great to have contributors who have their own codes. But yeah, no, I'm excited to discuss, Bitcoin Magazine and what we've been up to and my own work and stuff today. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so if you could please introduce yourself and tell people where they can find you.
So my full name is Casey Carrillo at BTC Casey on Twitter and Telegram as well. Both of those places are the best ways to reach me. But I am an opinion editor at Bitcoin Magazine. So I work with all of our outside contributors doing things like articles and podcasts and such. But yeah, it's a really fun job. I work on the newsletter as well, the daily newsletter that goes out. And I do Taco Plebs, which I have not done in a while. So this is my first podcast back since my hiatus from that. But yeah, no, I do that. And my main thing is the opinion articles. So if you ever see the little opinion tag on any Bitcoin Magazine articles, that is most likely something that I edited and published. But yeah, no, I've been with Bitcoin Magazine now since March of 2021. So it's been a fun ride, and we're really excited to continue forward and continue to be the host of the Bitcoin Pleb thought pieces on the internet.
Wow, yeah. What a time to join the magazine, March 2021, like right on the cusp of one of Bitcoin's biggest bull runs. Um, yeah, for me in particular, it was April 2021 when I finally bought my very first Satoshis of Bitcoin. So I know you've been involved in Bitcoin even before the magazine, but interesting to see where our journeys parallel. Yeah, I'd like to hear more about your Bitcoin story. How did you get started in Bitcoin?
Yeah, so I started, I'd heard about Bitcoin long ago, just like many people had, like just the murmurings on the internet about Silk Road. I mean, I remember I was like 15, 14 talking about like earning money off of a computer, because like at the time mining wasn't so sophisticated. So it was just like you run the program on your computer. And I was really interested in what that was, but I think I had only mined like a couple hundred sats at the time because my computer was weak and I just didn't have any money to buy anything nice. So I had heard about it for a long time. It wasn't until 2020-ish that I started really like looking at it from the perspective that I see it nowadays. And I think a lot of people were on the same length. When the COVID lockdowns happened, everyone just had a lot of time to do research and such. So that's when I really started looking at it, deeply. And right around 2021, like the January 2021, December of 2020, I started doing writing in regards to Bitcoin based on what I'd learned. Mostly, I was really interested in like the cultural sense of what was going on. Like I could see that there is a sort of shift between just Bitcoin as this like investment thing that people are going to make money on. And I could see like the pleb culture sort of bubbling up per se, like the laser-eyed crew, as it's now kind of commonly referred to. And I was really interested in that. And I was kind of interested in exploring like what that would sort of develop as when we have this asset that enriches people essentially. So it was a good timing because, right, like you said, right as I joined the magazine that March, the bull run really started to kick off, and we were really it was euphoric to say the least, and it was a great time, at least like in terms of experiences, to get immersed into the Bitcoin community and see how people perceive bull runs, how people react to it. And then I mean, now we're witnessing like the tail end of that, right, where at the end of every bull run is the flattening out. So yeah, I think it's just been an interesting ride to see. But as a Bitcoiner myself, over the last 2 years, I've learned more about culture, technology, history and economics than I'd ever thought I would have. You know, it's like more than you would absorb from a university course, I think. So it's been a lot of, you know, knowledge. I've changed a lot of things about my own lifestyle in terms of like trying to be healthier and stuff, just because it seems a pervasive thing in the community to have like a low time preference once you sort of understand Bitcoin. And yeah, I mean, it's changed my perception of like saving and how I spend my money and time. So overall, as a Bitcoiner, it's been a very interesting journey. And I feel like I got in at a very optimal time in terms of immersing myself in the network.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. You heard it here first. Get started in Bitcoin, and you'll actually take diet and exercise seriously. So
Yeah,
that's 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 all it takes.
seriously.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, it reflects so much your personality, as you say, that for all the different reasons people can be interested in Bitcoin, it was maybe the culture or the internet culture that brought you in. I mean, for others in March 2020, when COVID happened, you know, they saw the price of Bitcoin crater, just as all assets did in March. Um, but like, that's not necessarily something that deterred you. You were always interested in Bitcoin or interested in mining or just seeing people talk about it on the internet from 14 and 15 years old. And then during the lockdown, having time at home, uh, you know, it sounds like you just dove into that internet culture even more and found a way to feel connected to other people, even when you were isolated at home.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've always been sort of interested in like internet culture per se.
You've been on
Um,
Reddit, I'm guessing. So
yeah, yeah. Well, it's interesting. I spent a lot of time on Reddit when I was really young, like 13, 14, when it was kind of like a fresh new thing. And Reddit,
oh
I think,
no.
you know, Reddit
But
was at its best back then because it was before who was that CEO? I forget her name, Ellen something. And she would basically during like 2016, 2017, Reddit changed a lot. But before that, it was a very interesting place to discover the internet culture per se. You know, I spent a lot of time on YouTube. My friends had created like these video game like meme culture things. You know, so I was immersed in the internet culture prior to Bitcoin as well, and it almost was just like it was supposed to happen. You know, it was meant to be in terms of getting immersed in the internet culture from when I was young. And then, of course, now I'm like working in the space that sort of developed out of that. So it's, and you know, Bitcoin has been, for me at least, what I see it as, it's like this Schelling point, right? Like this center point in which a lot of internet culture has found itself going towards, right? Like you see like Barstool Sports, Dave Portnoy, he's like all talking about Bitcoin and he's a totally separate side of the internet than like these, you know, meme comedians who have embraced Bitcoin. So it's like, you've got totally separate sides of the internet. And yet somehow, for some reason, that culture of Bitcoin sort of brings that together. It's interesting to watch for sure.
yeah, I'm just picturing the subreddit, I'm 14 and this is deep, and you being a 14-year-old on Reddit, like, oh gosh, were any of the posts on there Casey's posts of deep things?
Probably more than you might think.
What's scary to me is, wow, the power that you have at Bitcoin Magazine. I mean, not necessarily scary, but you know, talking about the culture and your ability to curate the articles, the opinion pieces in particular, and do the editing. Um, there's a huge concept in the Bitcoin community between Bitcoin maximalism and then also Bitcoin toxic maximalism.
Mhm.
And we're seeing it now, where as we approach this bear market, people who said they were Bitcoin maximalists or people who wore their laser eyes are maybe taking them off. Um, in particular, I know Dylan LeClaire, who supports the Bitcoin magazine. He used to have his laser eyes on, and I forget what his reason was for removing them, but I think it was he didn't want to give his followers the false impression that the Bitcoin price was going to reach 100K anytime soon. So I think that's why he took them off. Like he felt it was important to do that. I
Mhm.
don't know if you remember that or not.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting that because that's a reasonable thing to say given Dylan's reach on Twitter, because
Yeah.
he sort of is representative of like a lot of price action thoughts to people, you know, they come to
Yeah.
him for that. So I could see why that's like logical. I actually took my laser eyes off.
Oh, the opinion editor of Bitcoin Magazine removed his laser eyes.
So I feel bad. First of all, I have to say I feel bad only because Shareforce, the inventor of laser eyes, literally designed my previous profile was a RuneScape cat, and he had added laser eyes for it to me, like pixelated ones that were nice and looked good. And I had changed my profile picture to my real face, and I didn't want to ask him to go back and do that for that one, but I'm sure he would. But yeah, no, I feel bad because I removed it from the original laser eyes owner who had donated his time to my profile picture. But so let me explain the cultural reasoning why I've heard many others do this and why I kind of decided to do it. Only because we find ourselves right. Bitcoin was a counterculture. It was something that was supposed to be anti-establishment. It was not supposed to be an in-group that was, influenced by a certain group of people. Not to say that laser eyes is like influencing people. I don't think it's that deep, but I think it's a symptom, right? Of like you were talking earlier about toxic maximalism versus regular Bitcoin maximalism per se, or just preferring Bitcoin as your primary coin and what you prefer to study. There's a difference for sure. And I think what we've seen is there's a lot of groupthink in terms of like what the quote unquote toxic maxis are seen as okay in the space versus like what regular just Bitcoiners might, accept. I mean, we don't have to get into the details of it, but like what's going on with Nick Carter right now is a good example of like there
Let's
are
get into
people.
details. Let's
Well, I
do
mean,
it. We're on a podcast.
yeah, I mean, he he did the thing where he's investing in basically a chain analysis supporter. I think it's called I forgot the name. It's like decentralized XYZ or something like that, some stupid name. And it's basically like supporting chain analysis. And so of course, the Bitcoiners are jumping on his back, telling him like, that you messed up, you shouldn't be investing in this. I think that could be healthy in a way, because it's like the toxic maximalist white blood cell response that's been talked about before, where it's like supposed to maintain the purity of the protocol per se. And, certainly certain maximalists would tell us that it's good that he's being sort of quote unquote taken down right now. But then I think there's also things like Jason Lowry, for example, who has had a lot of bad comments on his thoughts on Bitcoin, myself included. I've given him some crap for it. But I think that can also come from a place of groupthink and like just following the leader, in that certain people don't like Jason Lowry, and then therefore other toxic maxis feel they have to react that way to him. So I removed the laser eyes because I think that we should continue to hold self-thought, critical thinking to a higher level than just hoping that the other toxic maxis get their feelings right about whatever situation is present. So yeah, I mean, I don't think, I wouldn't say everyone should remove their eyes or anything like that. Like I said, I don't think it's that deep, but to the point that it's representative of everyone doing the same thing in Bitcoin, I think we just need to be careful about that. And I mean, you were mentioning how we sort of have power, quote unquote, at the magazine on the opinion side. But what we find is our biggest strength, right, is being a conduit for the plebs rather than trying to dictate what they're writing about or how they feel about a certain situation. So we never present, we'll give ideas about a certain article topic for sure, but we never only accept a certain angle. Like we have things that are critical of Bitcoin on Bitcoin Magazine too, not, in ways that are bad, like Bitcoin is stupid and useless, but you have to maintain criticality of Bitcoin. Otherwise you're not going to improve upon it. And like Shinobi is a big part of this. He's constantly talking about shortfallings of Lightning and Bitcoin right now, the networks themselves and the technology. And I think that's an important. So, we try not to exercise power per se. We just try to be like that conduit for the plebs to really reflect their own community back at themselves, right? Like that's what it's supposed to be, is like a mirror of what the Bitcoin community is thinking at any given time. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I probably went on for too long there, but
No, you got it. No, that's part of why I have so much respect for Bitcoin Magazine, and that's part of why I want to be a contributor to you guys, because there can be a tendency to lean toward controlling the narrative and to really just instead be a conduit to get people's voice out there. That can be difficult to do. One thing I was shocked when I stumbled upon this. You mentioned Shinobi. I think he made an article recently published in Bitcoin Magazine, but criticizing BTC Inc. for their partner for the previous Bitcoin conference 2022, that it was some small, not well-known hardware wallet. And at the conference, they were just giving out free copies of this random hardware wallet or something. And Shinobi was really critical of it, like, whoa, I don't support this random hardware wallet. I don't think this is a good hardware wallet sponsor. When I go on their webpage to look up the details of this hardware wallet, it's a lot of misinformation, like a lot of clever marketing. It's not very clear to me how my keys would be safe. It was a piece as if by having BTC, again, not necessarily the magazine, but having BTC Inc. Take on this hardware wallet as a sponsor, it was as if it was an endorsement from the company. And Shinobi was saying, I think it was Shinobi was saying, I don't think that we should be so I don't think we should be supporting this product. But of course, that piece was published in the magazine.
Yeah, I mean, I won't really comment too much on the business side of that, but on the article side,
Yeah,
100%, we just want to be transparent, right? And that's like the best we can do. And so like Bitcoin Magazine and BTC Inc., BTC Inc. owns Bitcoin Magazine, but I think, what we're trying to do with that is maintain our sort of editorial independence, right? So to be able to comment like that on our own business dealings is a tricky place to be, but we if we had written that, if Bitcoin Magazine had written that, I think that was not the right move, because we were in business with this company, but we had a position to facilitate the opinion of the Bitcoin community, because Shinobi was really speaking for a lot of plebs who were not happy with that decision.
Yeah, you're not paying Shinobi to write that article necessarily. Like, that's him wanting to submit it, I guess.
It was, yeah, well, it was self-generated, right?
Yeah, so, self-generated, right?
Yeah, so
you're not like, please write this.
Yeah,
talking
please
badly about
critical.
A sponsor. Yeah,
please come and poo-poo on our day.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think it was necessary per se. Once it came about, it was necessary for us to do something with it. Like, I don't think the right move would have been to take what Shinobi turned in and be like, yeah, we're not going to touch it. Sorry. I mean, maybe, you're also talking to the editor, who is I strongly advocate for like our own editorial voice and being able to have our contributors say what they want, whatever it is. So you're also talking to the end of the spectrum, which is in full defense of that article. Whereas I'm sure business side maybe had different feelings, but I think that, I guess, two comments on the business side, which I said I wouldn't. I think that was a learning lesson for us, and we'll going forward, I think there'll be more discussions on who we partner with. But yeah.
What was I gonna say? That's the other thing is what was I gonna say? So for you in particular, did you used to submit? It sounds like you got your start submitting articles yourself to Bitcoin Magazine. in
Right.
late 2020?
Yeah. So I actually started writing for the magazine as like a news type thing after my first submission. So I submitted something about the stock market basically being a terrible proxy for like our wealth or something like that. And Bitcoin was superior. And then they liked what I had written. And at the time they had a Telegram group, which was basically doing all of the news aggregation for them. So we weren't even self-generating news at the time. We were just taking the report from Reuters or whatever the other news source was, and then aggregating it to sort of create a rendition of it on our site, but in our own voice and sort of with the Bitcoin spin that we wanted to see. So I was doing that for a month or so, and I basically cannibalized the entire Telegram group. I wouldn't let anyone else have any assignments. I would stay up all day just doing writing for them. And at some point they were like, okay, we see that you're hungry basically for this, do you want to go any further? And I'm like, heck yeah, I do. So I dropped out of college actually, and
Oh, wow.
I got an internship here, and the internship was just it was this kind of the same thing I'm doing now, but with a lot less responsibility and a lot more oversight. I did that for 2 months, and the end of my internship was actually Bitcoin 2021. At the end of that, they were like, okay, he's done the conference and stuff. So I went full time, and I think for anyone seeking to contribute to us, we're always looking for thoughtful pieces on Bitcoin. Obviously, we're not interested in any other coins or protocols, so just avoid that. But other than that, I mean, we really try to keep the editorial guidelines open. Obviously, length and stuff is a thing, but short, good articles about certain themes in Bitcoin, right? And answering questions about Bitcoin. We're always seeking people who can do that effectively. So, hit me up on Twitter, BTC Casey, if you're interested. But that was how I started. And then with the conference and stuff, it sort of evolved into doing coverage of that too. So it's always exciting when we have the conference come around, because there's a lot to do on the editorial side. There's a lot to prepare for. Unfortunately, at this last one, we set up a contributor meeting, and the logistics worked out to where I just wasn't able to attend my own contributor meeting. So, but hopefully at the next one, we'll also be able to meet more contributors there and shake some hands. And it's always great to meet people who have written for us in person. So that's great.
Yeah, am I gonna get to finally meet the famous Namcios in person at the
Yeah,
contributor meeting?
he actually just looks like his profile picture. It's just a hooded figure with like black right here. So you can't
Oh,
even.
but he does show up in person.
Yeah. Oh
Oh,
yeah. Oh
wow.
yeah. No, yeah.
He's just got a face mask and a hood and stuff, but he's there.
Yeah, no, he'll show up in person. No, I mean, I was just joking. He doesn't even have a hood on usually, so you can shake Nampio's hand. It's just you gotta find him. It's like a game, scoping Nampios out. But no, I
yeah,
mean,
like I think Gigi is there and just nobody knows it's Gigi or something. So
yeah, I think we've had apparently a lot of 3-letter agencies present at these conferences over the last two, and I think if we could have like a little bubble above our head saying who this is, it would be incredible. The people you would like see at the conference. There's famous NIMs, famous NIMs. There's 3-letter agencies. There's billionaires. The conferences are really interesting. And while we're talking about it, let me plug in real quick. Bitcoin Amsterdam, if any of your listeners are European, October 12th through the 14th, we are taking it to Europe. We're super excited to do that. And, Amsterdam was a original location for Bitcoin conferences. In 2014, they had a major one. I actually was looking today. Vitalik Buterin, creator of Ethereum, wrote an article for Bitcoin Magazine in 2013.
And founder of Bitcoin Magazine.
Founder of Bitcoin Magazine. He wrote the article for the 2014 Amsterdam conference, and I was looking. I'm like, wow, first full circle when we're back there in Amsterdam in October. So that will be an interesting conference if anyone is interested in going to that in Europe.
Are you going on a business trip?
We have not determined who from the American team will be there. We have a separate European team that will assuredly be there, but I think it depends on who needs to be there for the American team. I mean, the bear markets are tough, man. When you're a Bitcoin company, you got to be very selective with the things that you spend money on during those bear markets, because that's like a make or break it moment for your company. So, man,
Yeah,
hopefully I find myself there.
I know, not necessarily trying to get too onto the business side, but when it comes to bear markets for cryptocurrency companies, the biggest reason I feel like they all are at risk is because they're financial companies and they hold a lot of Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies on their balance sheet, and they're needing those assets to fund their liabilities. So, but for something like uh, Bitcoin Magazine or BTC Inc., I know you guys do accept payment in Bitcoin for your products, but is it the same risk there of, oh, the company is holding a lot of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency on its balance sheet? Or is it just, of course, it's during bull markets that there's euphoria to buy Bitcoin products, and there's just lower demand? Is it a balance sheet issue or a demand issue in the bear market?
Um, I'm not exactly sure how much I'm allowed to comment on the balance sheet.
Okay.
But what I can say, I think, during bull markets, there are a lot of companies that get created based out of pure price appreciation, right? Like you see, like some investor has his Bitcoin stack grow so much that he's like, hey, might as well throw some money at this project.
Yeah.
And what we see during the bear markets is simply that sort of collapsing, right? So if you have a viable company with a product that generates revenue on a recurring basis, your company should be fine as long as you're not being stupid with the balance sheet, right? And that's not to say that being all in on Bitcoin doesn't necessarily mean stupid. It's just being over leveraged or you have too many expenses that you have to start selling Bitcoin, and that's when you're really losing, right? So I think the key is to just not get too excited during the bull run, actually, because bear markets, as long as it doesn't, really collapse per se, which Bitcoin has not, gone to zero yet, then it's survivable, as like I said, as long as you're not like bleeding as a company. But the goal during a bull market should be to create a company that's actually, fair weather and can take, a hit like that, and can generate revenue during a bear market. Like you said, yeah, there's a lot less demand for Bitcoin products. Luckily, like we've sort of been positioned as like that constant figure in the space. So people are still very much interested in the conferences and the magazine and such. And we're still a lot bigger than we were last bear market. Last bear market was 3K. So
Oh, yeah.
back in
Oh, right.
March.
Bitcoin overall, yeah.
Yeah, in the Bitcoin world. So we've been riding high for the last year and a half, and we're only down to, we're down to the previous cycle's all-time high, but that's still a quote unquote euphoric position for a lot of Bitcoin companies and people interested in it. And so there's still plenty of demand. I think, like I said, you just have to create a product that's worthy of that demand during a bear market, because there are people will be more selective with what they put money into.
Yeah, I mean, I love this saying, bear markets are for builders. So
Yeah,
what a time for me to launch a podcast during a bear market. But,
best
that's
time.
where the Bitcoin maxis, the people who are really in it for Bitcoin, like they're hungry for content, they're listening, and they know that it's all genuine and it's not just trying to quickly jump in like a scam or something. I remember the comment I was going to say finally. Jeff Bezos owns both Washington Post and Amazon, but I don't know if Washington Post has ever published a critical piece about Amazon. Like, for all the pieces they might have criticizing corporations, I don't know if they've criticized Amazon or not. So
Yeah, I
that
mean,
was the only thing.
editorial independence is a tricky thing. You have to have a bankroll that's separate from a company that you're disparaging, or
Yeah.
you have to be in a position where you're sort of an editorial monolith in terms of like being able to stand by your journalism. But
And that was interesting learning more about how the magazine works. So you said Bitcoin Magazine is really trying to write its own news articles on news events to give it that focus on Bitcoin. So as opposed to just republishing news articles from Reuters or something in the early day. When I reflect on Namcios's articles, it feels like he has a new article out every day or something, but I guess maybe that's part of it. That's one of his roles, is to comment on the news.
Yeah, well, right now we actually have a full news ag. It's gone beyond the previous aggregation style where we used a Telegram group, and now we actually have staff writers who take whatever news is going on in the space today, and they give it the Bitcoin Magazine voice. Not to say that we change anything about what the news is, we just represent it in the ways that we think Bitcoiners would care about it, right? Like there are plenty of news stories out there that have certain ramifications for Bitcoin, and then other things that probably just aren't applicable to our audience. So, but yeah, no, we have a full news team right now, which is way superior to the previous aggregation, which was not just not like the full functioning machine that we have now, which is really nice to have. And Namcios does an excellent job of doing research on his own. He goes beyond just like reading articles and actually talks to people, interviews them, talks to the companies that are involved. So yeah, he does a great job, and the news ag has really gone off.
Yeah, like original reporting, actually calling up the people involved in the story to talk to them directly and get quotes.
Right.
Another thing is you're talking about taking the laser eyes off as part of a way for Bitcoin to get away from a groupthink of a too much. If you're a real Bitcoin maxi, you would think this, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
A really controversial thing that happened recently was talking about Jeremy Rubin's BIP 119 proposal to add a new opcode CTV, check template verify, and I just know we have this big ethos in Bitcoin to don't trust, verify. But Peter McCormick on his podcast, he'll talk about how, but he has to trust. He's not a coder. It's not going to happen. Peter is not going to read the check template verify opcode. He's not going to read the BIP 119 proposal. And he does feel like he needs to trust people like Adam Beck to tell him what to think if he thinks this is good for Bitcoin or bad for Bitcoin. And again, I'm grateful. I think I'm pretty sure Namcios at least covers the upgrades to Bitcoin Core, which I really like. He might also have a piece on BIP 119. I'm not totally sure.
He does.
Okay, yeah, he does. But I know when it comes to elections and it's time to nominate justices, it's kind of weird how in politics, I don't know if it's weird, but the people vote for judges in their local courts. That's not just something that their legislative body does. And when it comes to voting for judges as a judge in a political office, newspapers will tend to give out endorsements. So when it comes to political candidates who give traditional speeches, maybe people are able to do their own research to know which candidate of which party they want. But when it comes to voting for a judge to sit on the court, they'll turn to LA Times, New York Times, whatever newspaper to see who does the newspaper endorse for a judge. And then they might be like, well, I tend to trust the editorial team of this newspaper, so I'm going to vote for the judge that they endorse. I don't know if Bitcoin Magazine has ever used its power and its platform to give endorsements to support various soft forks of Bitcoin or various bit proposals. I think Namcios has done a good job of not picking a side and just trying to explain. But have you considered taking the magazine in that direction?
Well, I mean, I think you could say we did a soft endorsement of Taproot, given our coverage of it.
Easy when it's universal.
Well, yeah, like that, exactly, right? But then there's people who are questioning whether Taproot was too easily accepted now, right?
Yeah, through speedy trial. Like if that was the wrong way to do it, even though it should have been implemented, sure.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's just like, did we get too excited and then just all kind of go, yeah, let's do Taproot, But no, I think we did semi-soft endorsement of that. You know, I think CTV, due to the fact that it's been so controversial, we really wanted to present like a neutral opinion on it. And like even with Shinobi has done some great work on CTV for us. And like with his piece, we had a little disclaimer saying like, you know, this is Shinobi's opinion on CTV. If you'd like to respond in kind, please email this address and we can set up an article. But yeah, I mean, I think as a newspaper, or not that word newspaper, as a publication, you know, everything we publish in some way or another is not an endorsement of what they're saying, because that's legalese, you know, but we're hosting it, you know. And so I think our goal with like things like core upgrades and stuff like that, and lightning proposals and stuff like that, we just want to give an objective sort of platform to people, but we also want to give that platform for people to have their own opinions. So like, and I mean, like we mentioned the groupthink thing, a lot of people didn't like Jeremy Rubin's proposal just because they didn't like Jeremy Rubin, or because other people didn't like his proposal. And Shinobi, you know, had a great piece saying, if you're not a technical oriented person, what makes you think you understand this, even to that level to where you can be on Twitter saying, you know, we shouldn't be doing OpCTV. So, you know, I think there's not a disconnect, but like a sort of distance between people who really technically get Bitcoin, like Shinobi, who wants to, you know, he was trying to explain why CTV isn't necessarily a bad thing and why it's probably an okay thing to implement. But then he would get, you know, to him, he would get feedback from people who just don't even understand it, but they're like, yeah, I don't like it because, you know, Adam Back said that.
Oh, so people definitely did give him feedback. They did
yeah.
We were not happy.
Yeah, well,
Shinobi,
I mean,
I thought you were one of us.
yeah, well, Shinobi had a nuanced take on the CTV thing, when a lot of people were very quick to jump on the I hate it train. And I mean, I think it also speaks to like what Shinobi has talked about before, like the ossification of the program. And as more people get in on the program, it becomes beneficial at some point to really slow down how we develop and the way we implement changes. But yeah, I mean, as a editorial team, as a publication stuff, I think the best way, you know, we're not involved in endorsing any politics per se. So to that extent, like we want to just be an objective platform for those opinions on that a proposal or feature or whatever, upgraded code or whatever. And we do have like a features side of the magazine, which is the same on the same face as opinions, but the features we generally try to frame as something that's more like our editorial voice. And then, you know, within that, we can sort of have room to play with like, well, if this person wants to give his opinion, you can say like, you know, in my thoughts, you know, this is what blah, blah, blah. So, but yeah, we don't want to create a per se hard endorsement of anything, but I think Taproot was definitely an example of something that we have represented before. You know, we were definitely like, we had a site that tracked like the little green dots when they activated. So, you know, we definitely have played that part a little bit before.
Yeah, I mean, I only on it so much today. I'm so impressed. I do that at Bitcoin.
One sec. The internet's
an
cut
honest
out.
conduit to okay.
Can you just repeat
the record again?
Yeah, you want to just repeat the last?
I'll repeat. Sure, I'll repeat. Yeah, I say it just to say I'm so impressed by the work you've done at the magazine, how you've been able to keep that journalistic integrity and truly be a conduit for the plebs. You know, when it comes to all the various news or media outlets, you guys at Bitcoin Magazine are not putting your thumb on the scale in any way, or at least, you know, like the most limited possible. That's why, you know, I'm so happy to contribute to you guys. I do want to give you a chance for a last word before we have to end the show.
Yeah, I mean, last word, if anyone's interested in Bitcoin Amsterdam, you should definitely try to attend that. If you're interested in writing articles for the magazine, please reach out to me. Like I said, I'm at BTC Casey, CASEY on Twitter and Telegram. So those are both places you can reach me at. And yeah, let's definitely work on an article together sometime. And other than that, it's what I would like to say is that I like working with the pleb community every day. I love, interacting with the Bitcoin community in person. I've been going to meetups since I got here to Nashville, and it's been great. So yeah, it's just great to be a part of this community. I love coming on shows like this with contributors who have contributed, because we get to talk about sort of the workings of Bitcoin Magazine, right? And it was fun to sort of discuss that today. And yeah, no, it's great to always be working with the plebs every day. I love my job, man. If I can say anything, that's what I love. So.
Yeah, it really fast. Anything you'd have to say to someone who thinks it's too late to get started in Bitcoin?
It's definitely not too late. I mean, heck, right now, not much better time is going to get presented to you. But in terms of like, I mean, that's like price thought, right? But in terms of like where we are as an industry and a space, we are. I mean, I always hated the term like, oh, we're so early. But man, looking back on myself, I was early. And I'm sure if you were to get in right now and then go 2 years ahead, you would look back and be like, wow, I was early then too. And I think we're going to continue to say that for the next couple of decades, right? So
Next
I don't
couple
think
decades.
right. Yeah. Yeah, if you get in at 2025, what are the odds that you're going to be happy that you got in at 2032, right? So I think it's going to continue to be where there's not really a bad time to get into it. And yeah, it's not, there's no bad time to get into Bitcoin. It's only good times. Only good
All right,
times.
there you go.
Yeah.
We've heard Casey admit it's so early.
Yeah.
Thank you, Casey, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.